Commander players, we have a Gonti Lord of Luxury Commander deck tech by Jumbo Commander. Gonti Lord of Luxury is a brand new legendary creature from Kaladesh, and he looks pretty sweet, kind of looming with blue ether in his eyes over his luxurious estate. He's 2 and black for a 2/3 death-touching Etherborn Rogue, and he has a very cool ETB effect. When he comes into play, you get to choose an opponent and then look at the top 4 cards of their library. You get to pick whatever one you want and set that aside. Put the rest on the bottom of that opponent's library. Now that card that you set aside, you can cast with any color mana you want, and it lets you cast it even if Gonti leaves play. So if we kill Gonti because he's death touching and send him back to the command zone, doesn't matter, you can still cast their card. Flicker him, doesn't matter, can still cast those cards. So this is a cool card advantage that's stuck on to your commander. I like it. Let's see what we can do with Gonti. If I'm building a deck around Gonti, I think I want to focus on the Enter the Battlefield trigger. I mean, it's by far the coolest part about him. So what ways can I abuse it? Well, I'm immediately thinking, can I flicker Gonti? Can I exile him and bring him back into play and get another ETB trigger? Well, flicker in black is just, it's bad. You have to stretch a lot. I mean, maybe I can build something around that. I mean, we could also maybe send him to the command zone and cast him over and over again. Maybe we send him to the graveyard and reanimate him. I don't know. Let's kind of explore what it would take to make a mono black flicker deck. And as long as we're talking about Gonti's Enter the Battlefield ability, what about other Enter the Battlefield creatures in black? There's a lot of really cool creatures in black that have Enter the Battlefield effects that we maybe don't see in a flicker deck because it's not black's thing. So I think we could have a lot of exposure to some new creatures. And as long as we're thinking in the theme of Gonti, what about stealing? I mean, he steals cards from your opponent. Maybe we can have a sub-stealing theme going on in this deck as well. I think with all this, we have a good idea of where we're going, but I think it's important to know that there's going to be a power level issue with Gonti. If we're making a flicker deck, we would definitely want to add another color, maybe a blue-black flicker deck or a white-black flicker deck, something that flickers better than mono-black. Or if we're doing a Reanimator theme, I mean, there's plenty of great black reanimation spells and reanimation commanders. Maybe we could add green for Mirren. I think that the power level of this deck is definitely going to be capped, but I think it's going to be really, really interesting. Let's start with the first category. The category is called I Got Your Stuff. Praetor's Grasp steals your opponent's stuff and lets you cast them. Hedonist Trove. I like this one a lot. Basically, you can exile an opponent's graveyard and play some of the spells in it. It's like a Praetor's Council, but for your opponent's graveyard instead of your own. These cards are really fun because you get to use your opponent's deck against them. Hey look, there's that Praetor's Council. And look, it's a little bit cheaper. Puppeteer Click has a very cool ETB effect. When it comes into play, you get a creature from your opponent's graveyard for a turn. And Sepulchral Primordial has an even better one. It has an ETB effect of taking a creature from each opponent's graveyard, and it does not end at the end of turn. Chainer Dementia Master. This 5-mana 3/3 pumps all your nightmares. Now, more importantly, you pay 3 black and 3 life and instant speed, get a creature onto the battlefield. I mean, it's great from any graveyard, and it's awesome. Unfortunately, these creatures are tied to Chainer, so if Chainer dies, you exile them. But Chainer's still really powerful, and I love that you can do it at instant speed, just like chain. This goes great with sacrifice outlets too, so you don't actually have to exile them if Chainer goes away. Grave Betrayal. Whenever a creature you don't control dies, you get it! And it gets +1/+1, and it's a zombie. So, you know, zombie dragons and stuff. Let's look at that ever so popular mono black flicker effects. Erratic Portal. Definitely not Flicker. I do like that you can force your opponents to keep up mana, or else you'll bounce their creatures back to their hand. But, you know, like Cloudstone Curio, Erotic Portal, I would like that portal much better than Erratic Portal. But you can bounce the creature back to your hand, and that'll let you get the ETB ability over and over again. And I would cast a Gonti every single turn if I could. And speaking of which, you get one extra cast with Gonti as soon as he gets unbelievably expensive, as long as you have Command Beacon to bring him to your hand. Mimic Vat and Whip of Erebos can get a creature that died back again. Mimic Vat over and over again, and Whip one at a time. I mean, you're playing around with Exile, but I think these cards are really powerful. Mimic Vat also lets you hit your opponent's creatures on their way to the graveyard, so that's pretty great. I would definitely like to put a Solemn Simulacrum underneath it. Cauldron of Souls. This is an underplayed and underappreciated card in Commander, so let's look at it a little bit closer. 5 mana for an artifact that says tap, choose any number of target creatures, those creatures gain persist until end of turn. That's it, just tap, give anything persist until end of turn. I really like that. Persist is a powerful ability. If a creature were to die and doesn't have a -1/-1 counter on it, it comes back with a -1/-1 counter on it. So all those ETB creatures will visit the graveyard for a second and then come back slightly smaller. Man, this card is great. We're going to have creatures dying all over the place. We might have some sacrifice outlets, and getting them all back again is really useful. Just think about board wipes, the protection this gives you. Board wipes suddenly don't wipe the board anymore. You just get your stuff back again. Also, this is a powerful political tool as well. Notice any number of target creatures. So you can get your opponent's creatures back with persist as well. In fact, you could be very political and give some creatures persist and other creatures not persist. This is a very cool card that can manipulate crazy board states. And along with it is going to be Mikaeus, which has a very similar effect. It actually gives them Undying. Wait a second, -1/-1 counters, +1/+1 counters? Yeah, you got it. They work together. Now, they don't go infinite together because the -1/-1 counters ability of Cauldron of Souls will go away once they go with Mikaeus. So they'll be very, very synergistic, but not go infinite. But what does go infinite with Mikaeus is Triskelion. We might throw him in the deck just in case we want a way to actually win instead of just durdle around with our graveyard for forever. Blade of Selves. It's another sort of... By the way, I love how none of these are actually flicker effects, but I'm getting closer. Blade of Selves gives Myriad, so if you attack one player, it's just like Pacha! And like multiplies into lots of different selves. On Gonti, you don't get to end up keeping all of the Gontis because, you know, they're legendary, but you will get all of those triggers, and even though the Gontis go away, you still get all of those cards in exile that you can play. I mean, I'm so excited about sleeving up a Blade of Selves right next to the Gonti and swinging in. I don't know what that sentence was. But Nim Deathmantle is another piece of really cool equipment. It plays around with the graveyard, and it has some infinite possibilities. Tanos' Coffin is such a cool card. It's a little bit pricey, but I love it. There's a lot of text down here, including mono artifact. Let's just read the Oracle. You don't have to untap it. 3, exile a creature. Any creature, by the way, can be your opponent's too. And then as long as it's tapped, that creature stays exiled. But if you untap it, that creature comes back. And this is old school stuff, so +1/+1 counters and auras stay attached to the creature. Okay. But one thing I really like is that this could just be 3 and tap, exile your Gonti, your untap step, you untap Tanos' Coffin, and then you get that creature, you get the Gonti back again. So this can actually flicker once a turn. Pretty cool, huh? It can also be used as kind of pseudo removal. Like, if you attack me, I'll put it in the coffin, and then you'll untap it and see what you did there, and don't do it again. It can be really good. Conjurer's Closet, our first real flicker. At the end of, at the beginning of your end step, flicker something. Yes, we have our first flicker in mono black. We're doing it. We're getting the Strionic Resonator. This just copies all of the ETB abilities. This is not flicker, but it's exactly what we want. If there's a triggered ability, you know, whenever at, and we're gonna double it. Great card. Voyager's Staff. This is a one-time flicker effect. Yeah, we're definitely scraping the bottom of the barrel for flicker effects, but we're getting there. Right now, as I have this deck built, I have one instant. One instant. Let's guess what it is. Nope, you guessed wrong. It's Rescue from the Underworld. 5 mana, you gotta sacrifice something, and then it goes and rescues a card from your graveyard, and they both come back. So it's like, get a ETB effect from your graveyard and flicker one that's in the battlefield. It's very flavorful. I don't know if it's very good. It was kind of fun and limited, but it definitely wasn't a first pick. I'm pretty sure I've made a deck where Rescue from the Underworld is for sure playable. Monsters worth flickering. First up, let's talk about Grave Titan, Aberrant Overlord, and Myr Battlesphere. They produce extra creatures when they ETB, so let's make lots of creatures. Grey Merchant of Asphodel and Kakusho the Evening Star, they drain your opponents real well. Sandstone Oracle and Runescar Demon both give you a form of card advantage. Sandstone Oracle just gives you raw advantage compared to the rest of the table, and Runescar Demon lets you search out that specific card you wanted. You can also put in Sidisi Undead Vizier if you have some creatures that you might want to sacrifice. A lot of ETB creatures, well, they're all about their enter the battlefield effect, so you can kind of throw them away afterwards, and that makes Sidisi perfect. I mean, that includes Gonti. You might want to exploit Gonti so you can just cast him again next turn. Netherborn Phalanx. This has a really cool ETB ability. When they come into play, each opponent loses 1 life for each creature he or she controls. So if you have a player going off, you might be able to drain them out with this really cool card. But also, Transmute. If you are looking for a little bit of a toned down tutor effect, Netherborn Phalanx could be the right card for you. Obviously, Demonic Tutor would be way better, but getting a 6-drop could be useful. How about this Micaeus the Unhallowed? Or this Triskelion. Oh my gosh, they combo together, and this is a search for the combo. Oh my gosh, what did I do? Or Massacre Worm. I like that. You get to find whatever you need. Grave Pact and Dictate of Erebos. Whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent sacrifices a creature. This is a creature-based deck, a lot of ETB abilities, and a lot of disposable creatures. So you're going to be clearing the board of a lot of your opponent's creatures. Plus, works great with Fleshbag Marauder and Merciless Executioner. Noxious Gearhulk, Massacre Worm, and Demon of Dark Schemes. All of these will help limit your opponent's ability to play creatures and keep them on the battlefield. The Gearhulk is representative of a lot of cards in black. Necrotal and Shriekmaw that all have these great kill-a-guy ETB effects. I like Gearhulk because he's popular. He's from Kaladesh, and he lets you gain some life. That's cool. Massacre Worm and Demon of Dark Schemes can neutralize an opponent's little tiny army, and Demon of Dark Schemes has a particularly cool effect of being able to pull stuff out of your opponent's or your graveyard, which seems like it could be a theme in a deck that has a lot of enter the battlefield abilities. Speaking of pulling creatures from your graveyard back into play, Recursion. Now, I already explained that we don't have the strongest of Flicker, so we might want to take advantage of these enter the battlefield creatures by pulling them out of the graveyard and back onto the battlefield. What better way to do this than with Phyrexian Delver, a creature that has an enter the battlefield of reanimating something from the graveyard. Oh, it's perfect. It matches so well. Shieldred Whispering One. She's just powerful. She should probably be the... No, she's not going to be the commander. This weird spider praetor is just going to go in there and mess up your opponents by making them sacrifice and bringing things back. How about a more interesting creature with Hell's Caretaker? Sacrifice a creature to get one from your graveyard back into play. I so wish you could do this at another time, but it says play this ability only during your upkeep. Still a very fun card. Reanimate, Necromancy, Animate Dead, Dance of the Dead, Infernal Offering. I'm going to talk about that one a little bit more, but all of these are great spells that can pull things out of your graveyard. I really like Necromancy because it can be an instant speed reanimate effect, and it can get it out of your graveyard and then back into your graveyard again for that ETB. I love it. Infernal Offering is sweet. Let's take a look at that. 4 and a black for a sorcery that says choose an opponent, you and that player each sacrifice a creature. When you sacrifice a creature, draw 2 cards. We might want creatures in our graveyard. We might want Gonti in our graveyard. And sometimes you can just give an opponent 2 cards. Like, they might not care, or you can have them get rid of a creature. This is a very cool political ability. Then choose an opponent, return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Then that player returns a creature card from his or her graveyard to the battlefield. This can be super dangerous, but hopefully you're picking the right opponent. Infernal Offering is a very narrow reanimation and kill spell, but I think it's really fun, and I'm looking forward to playing it in this deck specifically. Alright everyone, that was it. That was Gonti, Lord of Luxury. How did he fare as our commander? I'm really in love with his Enter the Battlefield ability. I think it's really cool, and we certainly stretched the limits of Flicker in black. But I got really excited about all the Enter the Battlefield creatures that I haven't had a chance to flicker in a lot of other decks. It sounds really cool. And on top of that, I really want to play Hedonist Trove on an opponent. So I'm in. I'm going to make this deck, and it's going to be really cool. Thank you everyone for watching. This has been Jumbo Commander with a Commander deck tech of Gonti, Lord of Luxury. If you enjoyed this deck tech and want to see more, go ahead and hit that like button, that subscribe button, favorite this, send it to a friend, comment. I'd love to talk to you guys. See you next time. Bye.